Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Schera. This is my co-star Raven from ESPN's Backroad Show. You know, I've been a fisherman all of my life, and I love a good fishing yarn. But what you're about to see is more than just a fishing story. It's a story about a fishing legend, and it could be the greatest fishing story ever told.
It all began with a hungry Finnish guy and a carving knife. It was the 1930s when a simple fisherman named Lauri Rapala made an observation of simple genius. Big fish eat little fish, especially little fish that are wounded. So begins the greatest fishing story ever told. As Lauri Rapala fished the waters of Finland's Lake Päijänne, he quietly rode and watched. What he saw was how hungry predator fish would dart into a school of minnows and attack the one that swam with a slightly off-center wobble. Lauri realized if he could craft a lure that mimicked the movements of a wounded minnow, he could catch more fish, earn more money, and not spend time constantly baiting lines. So Lauri set to work. He whittled, carved, and shaved. Eventually, a lure began to take shape. Using a shoemaker's knife and sandpaper, he created his first successful lure from tree bark, the year 1936. Tinfoil from chocolate bars formed the lure's outer surface and created flash. Melted photographic negatives were used for protective coating. But most importantly, Lauri's lure began to perfectly imitate the action of a wounded minnow. Legend has it that Lauri sometimes caught 600 pounds of fish a day with that new lure. As word spread of his catches, the lure's reputation grew. That, as they say, is the rest of the story. Today, Rapala's lures are sold in more than 140 countries. The legacy of Lauri continues with new Rapala offerings like premium graphite rods, reels, tools, knives, hooks, the world's first long-casting line, more new lures, and new ways of catching fish. Nothing is rushed to market, but carefully crafted from years of experience. As Lauri Rapala proved many years ago, that which is irresistible to fish will always be irresistible to anglers the world over.
Man, what a gorgeous day. Hey, them big boys are going to be biting in top water. Lure choice? Skitterpot. Knot looks good. Hooks are sharp. You really couldn't ask for better conditions than this, man. Wonder where they're gonna be. Back bays, weed beds, older shorelines. Hey, they could even be on sharp dropping bluff walls today. Boy, it shouldn't take long. There he is. Look at the size of him. It's got to be a 5er, man. First one. Boy, it's going to be one of those days. You see him underneath? Oh boy, he hit that thing. There she is. Look at her, look at her. Oh, she's got that thing in her mouth. She loves it. She loves that big old chartreuse. Popper, nice fish. I'll tell you something. When I can catch smallies like this on topwater baits like this, I get excited. Fact is, any kind of fish, when they're hitting topwater, is the most enjoyable fishing experience you'll ever have. And you want to know something? For a lot of species of fish, topwater fishing, particularly popping, can be the best thing you're doing. Little guy, but he was there. Oh, that was a good fish. You seen how those fish are so tentative like that? They're not blowing up on that bait. That's your cue when you miss a lot of them and they roll underneath it but don't hit it. That's your cue that you got to fish really, really slow. That's your indication. You know, basically, there's two types of retrieves you use when you're fishing a popper like this. When the weather is stable, clear water, fish are active, aggressive. When they're blowing up on a bait, that's your indication that they're active. And I fish very aggressive when this is happening. I'm really moving a bait like this. I'm going doop, 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 doop. I mean, I'm moving that bait a solid 10 feet and then a short pause. Then doop, 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 doop. You're really spitting, 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 spitting with a very short pause. That's all you have to do. The fish are active and they're coming in on it. Top of your retrieve, you're usually fishing the rod high. The last half of the retrieve, you're working it low. The next retrieve, when fish are negative, they've been pressured, cold fronts come in, you see fish coming under the bait, but they're not quite hitting it. That's when you got to really slow down. You throw out, you leave the bait hit, and you leave it sit a second. Then you go just a short. I mean, you barely move the bait 10 inches, and it just sits there. Again, just sits there. And what is happening, those fish are coming out of that cover when they're negative or neutral, and they're looking, looking, looking. And you don't want to fish the bait away from them. You got to give them time to ease up underneath it. You'll see it with smallmouths a lot. They come up and they tip their head sideways, and they look at that bait. They come closer and closer, and they suck the bait down. They don't explode on it. When they're sucking, you got to fish real slow. When they're exploding, you fish fast. That's simple. To be successful with any lure, you really have to understand the design of the bait itself. Basically, a skitter pop has a cupped lip, a buoyant balsa body, and a feathered trailer hook. Combined, they formulate a deadly lure. The unique cupped lip traps air as the bait is jerked subsurface, which in turn creates the popping sound and a surface disturbance. A slow retrieve with a single hard jerk pulls the bait deep and makes a bassy sound, while a quick skittering retrieve, on the other hand, creates more surface disturbance with a high-pitched sound. A balsa body quickly brings the bait back to the surface, while the tail dressing serves as an attractor. You have to experiment with the speed and cadence of your retrieve every time you're on the water. The activity level of your target species really dictates the best retrieve, and that can change a lot throughout the course of a day of fishing. Oh, got him. You see him slurp on that thing? Boop, 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 boop. Look, there's another one with him. Look at this. Look at this. Look, see the other? See his buddy? Look, I'll try to hook both of them. He wants to take that bait out of his mouth. There's 3 of them. There's another one down there. Oh, look at him. Oh, there's some good ones down there with him. I got the little guy. But you know what? We'll quick get him off. Get back in there and get that other big dog. Ooh, there was a nice one with him. Really a nice one with him. You know, there's really a heck of a lot of situations where topwater bites, like the skitter pop, are really an effective presentation. More than a lot of people think about. Stability like we have today, good stable weather, naturally is a key. That increases the odds on a good topwater bite. Insect hatches, like mayflies or dragonflies, will cause a lot of fish to feed high. Water clarity has a lot to do with it. The best topwater bites are usually in clear to stained water environments. Forage has a lot to do with it, where you've got a lake with a lot of suspended forage like shad or smelt or ciscos. Situations like this, fish come off a structure a lot and go out and suspend and chase the open water bait fish. And you can get tremendous bites of fish during low light conditions or on hot, muggy days like this, fishing over 30, 40 feet of water. You know, and that's something a lot of people don't do. I think I'm going to get another bite in here. This is a real good area right here. Look at it, one just swirled under it. He's just, see the boil behind the bait? He might bite this. Watch this. Look at him. Oh, whoa, I love it. I love it. Did you see him just go? Whoa. Oh, my heart's going thunk, 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 thunk. When you see them babies sitting under there, they come up, they look, and he says, should I or shouldn't I? Andy said, yes, I will, because I'm going to make your day. You know, not only are there, you know, weather and water conditions that have a lot to determine when you start topwater fishing for any kind of fish, not only smallmouth. Another thing that you got to keep in mind is there seasonal conditions, seasonal times when the topwater bite is really, really good. Right now, I happen to be fishing a post-spawn bite. I don't know why it happens, but for post-spawn fish, particularly smallmouth, it's an excellent, excellent time to zero in on a topwater bait. Skitter pops work in a wide range of conditions for a variety of fish species. Some of my favorite situations to fish poppers are over and around expansive boulder flats. Hey, make sure to target the largest rocks or high spots on these flats. Isolated cover such as fallen wood or flooded brush are great popping water. In these conditions, remember to slow your retrieve speed down to call fish out that could be holding deep in cover. When casting around emergent vegetation, like lily pads or reeds, target edges and open casting lanes where fish corral and hunt bait fish. For toppers, one area that may surprise some anglers are steep dropping bluff walls or deep points. In many waters, fish feed on forage that suspend high in a water column. Fishing skitter pops over deep water can be phenomenally effective at certain times. Look at him right under it. He's under it. He's right on it. He's going to hit it. Seen him coming. I seen him looking. You got to really leave it set. Some of them fish I missed because I pulled it away from them too. I just pulled it away from them too darn fast. That's what I did. That little guy, took him a little while to decide, what he's going to do. He ain't no big one, but he's a smallie. Hey, when it comes to tackle, it's pretty cut and dried as far as I'm concerned. I like using bait casting rods when I'm fishing poppers like this. I like a 6-foot rod, medium action, so it's a fairly fast tip. It just fishes the bait easier. And anywhere from 10 to 20 pound test line. That way you can fish really big baits. You can fish them down to smaller baits depending on the kind of cover you're fishing in. And actually, if you want to, and you're fishing real small poppers, you know, you can go to a spinning rod for the littler baits, and sometimes they fish a little better. But day in and day out, I like a bait casting rod. Hey, something to always keep in mind is size and color. These are two important considerations that are always a part of the equation. On some days, color or size or a combination of each of them can make all the difference in the world between a good day or a great day. As a general rule of thumb, in clear water environments, you want more natural or neutral looking baits, smaller in size, and you fish them fast. In darker water environments, you want bigger baits, baits with a lot of color, and you fish them very, very slow. Naturally, these are just guides. Key thing to remember, you want a good variety of sizes and colors in your tackle box of your favorite bait. You see him underneath? Come here, baby. Oh, look at her. Look at, see if she's got any buddies with her. Look at her in the water there. Whoa. Oh. Whoa. Come on out this way. I want to get you back off that point. Oh, come here. Come here, Mr. Smalley. Well, there's a lot of fish on this point, I'll tell you that. A lot of fish on this point. It's so much fun when you see them come up under that bait. You know how they look at it, and then all of a sudden they can't help themselves? They got a bite on it, huh? They got a bite on it. Whew. Well, I love catching smallies like this. On top water. I'll tell you, there's really a lot of situations that poppers, like the skitter pop, work for a wide variety of fish. And there's sometimes, no, not sometimes, a lot of times, where it is absolutely the best presentation you can be chunking.
For years, lure manufacturers have been refining shape and color patterns to closely mirror the look and movement of natural fish foods. Today's anglers have a fantastic array of color patterns and shapes that mimic just about any prey that swims, crawls, or jumps. A big part of any lure's success comes down to how it moves in the water. Some are designed to dive deep, and others run shallow. Some pop on the top, while others suspend. The finely tuned balance of a suspending husky jerk has ushered in a new dimension into an angler's ability to attract and trigger fish into striking.
There he is, Ron.
Bar none, the Rapala husky jerk has become one of the most universal fish-catching lures ever designed.
This too could be your favorite fish. There he is!
You got him!
Oh, he's still on. Oh, just this drag, man. He is. Oh, it's a good one, Ron. A sigh of relief. A 14 husky jerk again. You know, each and every Rapala lure is handcrafted and finely tuned to mimic bait fish. And when you're in the water and you got to tie it onto your line and you're doing what we're doing today, you are controlling that bait and actually breathing life into the lure to make it seem as a bait fish trying to escape that dominant predator.
Throwing up to this rocks. Those rocks drop off to about 5 foot and it slowly tapers out to 20. There's a big ledge here and there's some bigger boulders down deep. These fish are sitting down there in this current area that's blowing through that bridge over there. And what we're doing with the husky jerk, we're pulling it down stalling it a little bit. Some of these fish might be coming out of 15, 18 foot of water.
When you're casting to these riprap shorelines or shorelines that have got boulders or down trees, how you position your rod tip is very critical. On that initial cast, and that lure is hitting in maybe a foot of water, you want to keep that rod tip up high and short, jerky little twitching actions with the rod tip. As you get closer to the boat, start working a twitch to drag that bait into the deeper water, and you're controlling it with your rod tip. Rod tip down, deep, rod tip up, shallow so you don't snag. Got him! There he is! Oh God, this is a good, Ron, this is really a good one. There, got him! Ronald, the hero, he came back, buddy! Oh, is he pulling? Unbelievable. Oh, what a good fish, Ronald. Nice fish.
It's a good one.
This is a good fish, Ron. Hold on. There we go. Another nice pike. Number 14 Husky Jerk. This is what trips of a lifetime are all about. I get so excited. Oh, Ron's thrashing one in the back. We can't get the hooks out fast enough to get back in the water.
Nice fish.
I got to retie, but Ron, what can you say about a color triggering pattern that's getting established here?
We're using these fire tigers. We use some of these other colors. We caught some fish on them, but apparently the way it's laying today is bright flash color is really calling them up off of that deep water. Apparently they're laying in this particular case at about 17 foot, and it appears that they can see this bait a long way, and they're willing to commit.
You know, we've been using Husky Jerks all day today. This is a number 14, and there's a reason. But there's also a reason I carry a lot of Husky Jerks in your boat, and you want to do the same thing. Today, we're triggering in two different aspects, color and size. We're fishing pike. We want it aggressive. You got to have something bright and flashy. We've been having great success today with the Husky Jerk in the Fire Tiger. But for different situations and different species, whether it's pike, walleye, or smallmouth, you need to go up in size, down in size, low in color, flash in color. You need it all, and that's the beauty of the Husky Jerk. We got them in all the sizes, the colors, and the shapes.
To become truly proficient with the Husky Jerk is understanding the types of retrieve your target species will most probably bite on. As a general rule of thumb, for pike, muskie, stripers, and trout, fast and erratic is the ticket. Quick rod twitches combined with a fast stop-and-go reeling produces a tempting gotta-bite-it action that fish can't resist. For walleye, a slower, consistent sliding retrieve is usually necessary to enlist a strike from these finicky biters. A sliding retrieve consists of reeling up the slack, then pulling the bait with rod slowly, and then repeating the process. On the other hand, bass usually favor some variations of the stop-and-go retrieve. In cool or cold water, it's usually best to reel the lure down and then dead stick the bait for 20 seconds or more, then retrieve again and repeat the process. The most unique aspect of the Husky Jerk is that the angler has the ability to adjust the speed and action of the bait in a wide degree of tempos.
I'm using a casting rod, and Ron's throwing a spinning rod. There's no right, there's no wrong, but the actions are still the same. The length of the rods are still the same, and coupled in with long cast monofilament line, it's a perfect combination for accuracy, distance, and bringing these big fish out.
In the 45 years I've been in the sports fishing business, I've seen few lures that are effective on so many different kinds of fish under so many different kinds of circumstances as this Husky Jerk. In freshwater, I've caught muskies, walleyes, smallmouths, largemouth, you name it, I've caught it. In saltwater, I've caught snook, reds, jack carvel, I've caught tarpon on it as well.
Where is the absolute best place to fish a Husky Jerk? Well, that's not an easy question to answer, because this superb lure works so well in so many varied situations. For example, it works on rock points, bouldered shorelines, and sunken islands. All are prime candidates. Concentrate your casts on the upwind side of any of these structural entities. The Husky Jerk's unique action summons up those predators lurking down deep. With a quick downward stroke, you can simply shear weeds clear of the bait. This erratic motion often will trigger fish into striking. And don't forget about timber and logs. Husky jerks are extremely effective to call fish out of isolated deadfalls or stump flats in rivers and reservoirs. It's important to remember that game fish like pike, smallies, and eyes often move up and down in the water column. In the morning, fish may be holding deep, say in the 8 to 15 foot range. Here, a down deep husky jerk would be the right choice. Then, later in the day, as the fish move up onto the shallow shelves, say in the 4 to 8 foot range, a regular husky jerk would then be the ticket. The husky jerk is one phenomenal bait. You could tie it on in spring and never take it off for the rest of the season.
Hero, my goodness. Look at the size of this pike, Ronald. All day, we've been fishing husky jerks. 10s, 12s, 14s, fire tigers, clowns, the new colors, the old colors. We've done it all. I'm shaking, man. We were fishing smallies in the backs of bays. We've been catching walleyes out here on these wind-blowing points. And then the Mr. Monster's got to hide around the back sides of them. The husky jerk, man. You can catch them all. You can have the fun of a lifetime with the husky jerk. It is the one and only bait you really need. You know, today we did a lot of fishing, and we fished really hard for pike, for walleye, for smallmouth bass. And the beauty of it, the husky jerk, what can you say? It's durable, it'll go, it'll perform for you, but it's a delicate tuned instrument. And periodically you got to double check to make sure the bait's tracking perfectly and balanced perfectly, just like it is when it comes from the factory. And tuning is very simple. You check your bait and you look at it and you pull it slow, and you can see that it wants to roll to the left. I'll do it again. It just wants to roll up on its left side. But if you can't really tell, pull it fast and watch what happens. It wants to pop out of the water. After a rough day on the water, this baby needs a tune-up. But it's simple. It only takes a couple seconds. The bait was rolling up on its left side, so we want to bend the eye to the right, the opposite direction. Take the eye of the lure, insert it in the prospective groove in the pliers. The bait was tracking left, I'm moving it right. Now we got to see if she's running true again. She's running good, ready to get abused again in the water. Tuning your Rapala, a very simple thing to do, but it's the little things that make the big difference in putting a smile on your face on the water each day.
Crankbait fishing is a unique art of angling. Subtleties in lure choice, retrieve speed, and casting angle are all part of the system which the king of crankbaits, David Fritz, has taken to a new level.
As a professional fisherman, I fish all over the country. I can attribute my success to one thing, a crankbait, especially a Rapala crankbait. Crankbaits have several great qualities that make them successful. 1, they enable an angler to cover water quickly. 2, crankbaits cover a wide range of depths in a single cast. 3, the action, the vibration, and the flash of a crankbait without a doubt triggers strikes.
Let's face it, each different lure has a specific depth range where it works best. For example, a number 5 Fat Wrap is a good choice for water depth that is shallower than 5 feet. A number 7 Fat Wrap works best in the 4 to 8 foot range, while a Dives 210 covers the 8 to 10 foot depth level. Going deeper, a Dives 216 is the best choice when bass are in the 12 to 16 foot zone. For anglers who are not familiar with how deep an individual lure runs, Rapala makes a casting and trolling dive chart that makes lure selection for a given depth a lot easier.
Retrieve, one of the most asked questions by anglers. How do you retrieve a crankbait? There's no wrong way. It's always important to make a good long cast hold my rod down low to get my bait down fast, raise my rod up a little bit to control the depth, and a good medium solid wind. This will catch most fish, but to catch more fish, whenever you feel your bait hit a piece of cover, you want to slow your wind up and raise your rod. And what happens is I'm barely pulling the bait to me, almost making the bait totally quit vibrating. And what happens is it gives the fish a better chance to look at your bait. Once I get over that piece of cover, I like to speed my reel up 2 or 3, 4 or 5 times. He thinks that bait's going to get away, and guess what? He attacks it. That's how you catch more fish. Whether the structure is rocks, weeds, or wood, experience has shown that without a doubt, a crankbait that is bouncing off cover will catch many more bass than one that is not. Another very important thing about crankbait fishing that a lot of folks don't understand is learning to control the depth that your bait's running. Even though you've got a crankbait that runs 10 foot deep, a lot of times you're throwing it up in a lot shallow cover. So what I want to do is I make me a good long cast right on top of the cover, and I want to hold my rod up till this bait starts getting away from the rocks, and then I eventually start lowering my rod. And what happens is once you do this, you can actually control the depth of your bait from 2 to 3 foot, and that's a lot. 6 inches makes a difference between catching 100 fish and not getting a bite. So it's very important to learn to do this, and your rod tip is the simplest way. You know, a lot of people, you can change your depth control by line, but there again, you can change it more by controlling the rise that you have in your rod. Start off high in shallow cover, and as it comes deeper, lower your rod.
In many crankbait situations, repetitive casts from different angles may be necessary to trigger a bite from a bass that's holding tight on cover. On the other hand, once you understand the shape of a structure and catching fish from it, you'll recognize that there is a certain direction of pull that is most productive for that particular spot. Once you find it, you'll want to repeatedly approach that location from the same casting angle.
Current is a big part of crankbait fishing. A lot of times you think, well, the lake doesn't have any current. But anytime you've got wind, anytime you've got a lot of water coming into the lake, anytime you've got a power plant, you've got current. And what happens is, it is true that fish do face the current. And what you got to realize is, when you're throwing a crankbait, you've got a moving bait that's moving along at a rapid pace, and that fish is sitting here facing the current. When your crankbait's coming towards him, he's got little opportunity to hit that bait. If you're throwing cross current, then here we are. The fish is sitting here swimming, and this bait is coming from here past the fish. He's got a wide opportunity to see the bait and attack that bait. When it comes to equipment, there's 4 important things that you really need to have to become a better crankbait fisherman: rod, reel, line, and hooks. Rod. What kind of rod do I use? I use 100% fiberglass rod. It's got a lot of flex, therefore when you get a fish close to the boat, guess what? I don't lose it. Very important. Reel. What's important about a reel? How do you wind your reel? If you wind like this right here, you need a low ratio reel if this is very comfortable to you. Anything from a 3/8 to a 4/3. This particular reel is a 4/3 to 1 ratio. Drag. Very important to always have a smooth drag and a loose drag when fishing a crankbait. Line. 10-pound test. People like 12, people like 14, but I prefer 10. It makes your bait livelier. It makes your bait get down to the depth that it's designed to run. How about hooks? What catches a fish? Hooks. Guess what? You don't catch very many fish without hooks. So pay close attention. Anytime I check my line, I check my hooks. Most crankbaits come with quality hooks, but you know, occasionally these hooks get bent, occasionally they get dull. What you need to do, and what I like to do, is that I carry me a little extra pack of hooks. I use a VMC vanadium hook. It's a real wide bend hook. They're ultra small, so when a fish touches them, if he slaps at my bait, I've got a chance of catching him. And that's what's important about crankbait fishing.
While David Fritz is a successful professional tournament bass angler, it's vital to remember that his strategies on lure selection, retrieve speed, current factoring, and casting angle is applicable to many other freshwater fish species. From lazy prairie rivers to rushing mountain streams, North America's watersheds offer some of the most diverse and least pressured fishing opportunities. Finny critters of all sizes and species call these wandering waters home, and they all have one feeding pattern in common: ambush. Virtually anything that interrupts the current, rocks, rapids, bridge pilings, fallen trees, and the like provide slack water areas where fish hold, lying in wait for whatever tasty morsel Old Man River is serving up today. And there's the key. You want to present your lure as naturally as possible in these pinpoint locations. That calls for a finesse approach. Rapala's mini baits are among the best bets for coaxing the biters out. A light, fast-action rod and limp, small-diameter line allow for long, accurate casts. And make sure your drag is working smoothly. Big fish bite little baits too. In most cases, you want to go with the flow. That is, cast across and quarter your lure back, passing it behind any current breaks. The zone where slack water meets moving water is the hot spot. The real key to this type of fishing is to move quickly. Remember, these locations are like corner bus stops, with fish coming and going all day long. Some of them are bound to be hungry. The ability to cover water methodically is an integral part of any angling situation. Let's face it, before you can catch a fish, first you have to find the fish. Trolling crankbaits is unquestionably one of the most efficient and effective tactics to first find,
Oh, there's one. All right.
then catch fish deep, shallow, and in between.
Tell you what, no matter what type of crankbait you're using, whether you're fishing suspended fish or fishing off a reef, the key is to put that crankbait in front of the fish. Fish on! Whoa! Right. I know it's hard to tell how big it is.
Let me get the net.
Yeah, probably.
Nice fish. Right in the prop wash. Get him. Oh, that's a nice fish. There you go. You gonna grab him?
Nice fish. Right there she is.
Nice fish.
One thing you need to do a lot of times when you're open water trolling like this is to do a lot of experimenting. We've caught in one fish so far, and it was down in that, we're guessing, 16 to 18 foot range. So I just changed baits up here, and I'm gonna put a different type of bait down in that same area. I'm not using any snap weight, I'm just long lining it 100 feet out. And it's key to get your lines spread out, try different baits until you get on a good program. Once you get on a program, you know, figure out what type of bait they want, the depth that they're at, the speed that they're at, you know, then you can change up and put the other lines that way. But that's what trolling is. It's a lot of experimenting.
In order to be a successful troller, you must be versatile and ready to experiment. Professional anglers use 3 basic techniques when trolling: flatlining, snap weights, and lead core. Each is designed to get the lure to a specific depth and keep it there. Flatlining is simply letting the lure out behind the boat and allowing the bill of the bait to drive the lure to its maximum depth. Rapala has handy casting and trolling dive charts that enable you to quickly select the right lure to target a precise depth level. For example, a Shad Rap RS number 7 on 10-pound monofilament line trolled at 100 feet back will dive to a depth near 14 feet. Snap weights are an alternate version of flatlining. A great rule of thumb is to let the lure out 50 feet behind the boat. Clip on the snap weight, then let out another 50 feet of line. It is important to note that snap weights come in various sizes. By changing the weight, amount of line let out, or the speed of the boat, you can dramatically change the depth your bait is running at. Successful trollers are constantly trying different combinations of depth and speed in order to trigger fish into striking. Lead core is a no-stretch line that has been weighted with lead and color metered every 30 feet. These colored segments enable anglers to tell at a glance how much line is out. For example, one color equals 30 feet. 3 colors would equal 90 feet of line. Lead core allows you to fish very small baits deeper without hindering the action of the lure. In all of these trolling situations, it is very helpful to remember to have line counting reels so you can replicate the most productive pattern. The key is the right lure at the proper depth and speed.
They seem to be, I don't know, down in the 22 to 25 foot range.
And we're over 35 feet of water.
This is a nice fish.
He's staying down to the leader. You just got a glimpse of him down there. He's fighting hard.
He doesn't want to come in.
He's a real fighter.
Nice fish.
Decent. All right. There he is.
He's not huge. I thought he's bigger.
There we go.
Nice fish. Not as big as I thought it was, but nice fish. 24 inch or so. Hey Vaughn, I think we should change that other line up there and put another lead core out with the number 9 holographic. That seems to be a pattern.
I think that's a good idea.
We haven't
It's been a hot pattern.
We haven't been doing much in the high baits and stuff, and
yeah.
So let's change that one up over there, and
yep.
That seems to be
That's
a pattern.
working.
And
That's working.
I noticed on the depth finder now too. We're marking a lot of fish down there low, some big ones. Oh, there's one, Vaughn.
All right.
Right on the turn. I just turning around, and you know, a lot of times on turns that can really trigger them.
Yep. Just a little change in speed, slow down, speed up, whichever way.
Feels like the same size. I tell you what, where we're trolling right here, we're out off a mud flat. The mud flat comes up to 24 feet on the top, and we're out from it, I don't know, maybe a block. We just went across it a little while ago, and the fish seem to be suspended at the same depth of the flat. The flat tops out at 24 feet. Right now we're in 35 feet, and from what the electronics are telling us, those fish are staying at that same level of the flat, suspending out over the deep water. And that you'll find that holds true in a lot of different bodies of water. He doesn't like the boat.
Great for kids to reel in. Whoa, that thing's fighting. Wow.
Come on, babe.
Right? Yeah, almost.
Ooh. Ooh, nice fish. Nice fish. Tell you what, these new RF Shad Raps, they're quite the bait. I'm all tangled up here. There we go.
Wow.
That's the bait right there. Nice fish. That one kind of close to 8 pounds, I'd say. There she goes. All
All right, put this one back out, and we've been continually changing all day.
Fish on!
Fish on. All right. There we go.
Go ahead, Vaughn.
I'll keep putting this one out. And I guess, you know, I can keep saying what I was going to. I guess we've been changing all day till we found what works. And right now it's been working great. But it won't work all day. It'll change. And when we change, we'll change our depth up or down a little bit, follow where the fish are going. We'll change our colors. If the clouds come in like they look like they might be, we'll change our color possibly if it quits working. We'll keep using what we are until it quits working. But if we go for any kind of a span of time where we just aren't catching fish, we'll start changing what we're doing. Size of the baits, depth of the baits, and color of the baits.
That's
okay.
a nice fish.
Nice fish.
Well, he came up right away.
Oh, man.
Nice one. Oh, that's a nice fish.
That's a nice fish, yeah. Come on, baby. We're about due for one. Fish on.
The lead core.
Whoa. Yep, it's on there. Well, that was on the turn. Yep, feels good.
This is the second fish now we've got while we were doing a turn, and this was on the inside of the turn. And you'll see that a lot. What it does is, on this bait particular, we're using lead core. On that turn, it actually dropped down lower and it went slower. So a lot of times, what we do a lot of times when we're fishing, we'll do S turns. I mean, sit there and just S like that, and you can create a lot of bites that way.
Why don't you grab the net, Grace? He's pretty close. I'm up to my mono. Oh, yeah, I can see him down
I
there.
think you can lift him in.
Think I can lift him in?
Wow.
I don't want to lose that valuable crankbait there. That's a hot bait today. Yep, the old S turn did it.
You'll see that a lot on, especially like out in the Great Lakes and stuff. Some of your top trollers, that's all they do all day long is do S turns. And sometimes the outside baits, when they're on the outside bait actually goes faster, and the inside bait goes slower and drops. And some days, I mean, it's kind of weird, but some days you'll catch all your fish on one side of the boat, and other days they'll be on the other side of the boat. And I mean, it's always trying. You're always trying to figure out what's going on out there. But that's the key, is to try to figure out what the pattern is. Don't force feed fish. Let them tell you what they want, what speed they want, and that's the key. And once you can hone in on all those little different secrets they're trying to tell you, then you can get on them pretty good.
Oh, there you go. You know, another thing is great about fishing crankbaits. You know, you go to a new places, new bodies of water you haven't been at before, I guess, and they're huge. There's a lot of things that you don't know. It's a lot of unknown because you haven't been there. Crankbaits are excellent for searching out fish. You can cover water fast. If you go out and fish other methods, jigs, rigs, or something, you're going to fish a little spot. It's going to take a long time. The crankbaits, you can see what's on the bottom. You can learn structure. You can cover a lot of water, spreading out your lines. It's real efficient.
Oh, there's a fish.
All right.
You never know what, you know, every day's different. So never get stuck into fishing the same pattern all the time, and you know, try different baits, try different depths, try different speeds, and you know, that's the way you grow as a fisherman. If you keep doing the same thing all the time, you're not gonna get better. You might get better in that one specific thing you're doing, but as an overall fisherman, you're not gonna get better. But speed and size of bait is critical. You know, I'm surprised we got a bunch of boats that are fishing up on this flat right here, and they're all rigging, probably leeches and crawlers, and we've caught a fair amount of fish out here now. And I know they're all sitting there watching us, trying to figure out what we're doing, and I wouldn't think it'd take them too long to. That's a nice fish.
Nice fish. Nice fish.
That came off.
Right there.
Folks, regardless of where you're fishing, whether you're out in the Great Lakes or here in the upper Midwest where we are today, fishing crankbaits is a great way to cover water and a great way to catch fish. I mean, man, it's hard to argue with fish like that.
A wise old angling adage states, if you want to catch really big fish, then use big baits.
You know, over the years, Dan and I have fished from the Northwest Territories to the Amazonian jungles and actually have caught fish on a very limited selection of lures. A lot of people have the tendency to think that their fishing situations are unique, but nothing could be further from the truth. Actually, a lot of lures and angling techniques cross geographical boundaries. Regardless of where you fish in the world, giant game fish of most species like chewing on big baits. For starters, let's check out this Rapala Countdown 18. I've caught wahoo, kingfish while speed trolling in Mexico, Belize, and Florida, and pike or muskie in the US and Canada. This Magnum Rapala is an exceptional lure for striper, pike, and muskie in North America, while it's a great bait for peacock bass in the saber-tooth payara in South America.
Hey, a personal favorite of mine, the Super Shad, is my go-to lure for casting and trolling for pike, muskie, and giant lake trout. It's simple. Big fish eat big prey, no matter where they swim. Okay. Yo, look at that! Look at the size of that fish!
Whoa, big fish.
There
Look
he
at
is.
the size of that, man.
He
Wow,
flared.
did you see
Yeah,
that?
he flared. He
That's
ran.
a big fish. Hit the waypoint, Dan. That's dead fish right there. That's a 35-pounder. I know one thing. Lure selection is really important in any crankbait fishing situation. The thing is, right now we're fishing deep weeds up on top. The weeds come up to probably 3-4 feet of the surface. On the deep edge, they probably come up within about 8 feet. This bait here runs at the right depth level for this particular given situation.
You know, when you think about it, choosing a crankbait involves size, the color, and the action. And probably all over the world, prey have two basic shapes. Sort of a short, wide shape like this, shad, super shad, or a long, thin shape like this Mag 18. Now, no matter where you fish in the world for practically any species of fish, this probably holds true. And what you want to do is pick a bait of the approximate size and shape of the predominant prey fish. And using that as a guideline, it will help you pick your lures and catch more fish.
Another vital aspect of any angling situation is choosing the most effective lure color. Many experienced anglers choose lure color based on two distinct factors. Ask yourself these questions. First, what are the dominant color patterns of the bait fish in the water I'm fishing? Second, what is the water clarity? Remember, many game fish rely strongly on sight to locate prey. Fish must see a lure before they can bite it. Therefore, different lure colors are essential to fish clear, stained, in dark water conditions. An assortment of lures in several color patterns, different shapes, and lip designs allow me the flexibility to adjust to any situation I may encounter on the water.
Many of these crankbaits, you can cast them or troll them for many different species of fish. And one thing about casting or trolling, you want to make contact with the structure, whether it be weeds, wood, or rocks. And it takes a bait with good quality and good construction components and able to do that. This particular Shad Rap has an extremely sturdy build, and we've been banging it off of rocks and weeds and wood, and sometimes when a bait hangs up and triggers the strike just as it breaks off the structural element. And we catch a lot of fish banging baits off a structure.
You know, each one of these baits have their own unique innate action, such as this Super Shad is a great bait that I use almost throughout the year. It's got sort of a big floppy wobble with a lot of flash. Some baits have a lot tighter action, such as a CD series. But what you have to do is experiment and tune into what the fish will potentially bite on at that given day. And each different species of fish have preferences, you know what I mean, depending on water temperature, the cover you're fishing, the depth of water they're in. So it's a big experimenting process, just figuring out what the fish will bite on. Ooh, there he is. Look at that, right there by the side of the boat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that jerkbait retrieve, just popping it on the edge of the weed. Mr. Sura, you're gonna have to take command of the ship
I got
here.
it.
Come on, buddy. Oh. Whoa. Whoa. There we go. Boy, I got her hooked pretty good. Just in the tip of the nose. Okay, buddy. Come on, come on. Okay, you gotta get on the trolling motor.
I got it.
Okay, boy, we don't have her hooked that good.
She's snooted good. The
Is
bait's not
that
gonna rip
it?
out. She came right out of that cover, James. I saw her come up and eat the bait right when you twitched it and paused. She came
Yeah,
right
I know.
up and eat it.
I gave it the, you know, just that slow slide. We're sitting on the edge of a deep weed bed. I sort of hesitated the bait about 6-8 feet away from the boat. And she just came up and I just saw her launch it, came up. Ooh, come on, come on. Here, we're gonna have to get the fish here because she is not hooked good. Okay, Daniel, you want to net this little guy for me, please?
I will do it.
Right now the water's 73 degrees. It's midsummer. Boy, come on, buddy. Oh, boy. Oh, look at that. Okay, come on. Oh, this guy is tough. I can't believe it. Okay, Mr. Sura, are you ready? I think we're getting in better position here. I'll just sort of lead her right in there. Yes, there we go. Here we get her underneath the jaw. Look at that, beautiful starter fish. You know, that fish was just caught on a jerkbait retrieve, classic jerkbait retrieve, but there's a variety of different ways you can, you know, retrieve these baits depending on the situation and the species of fish you're fishing for. We'll get her back in the water.
Let's take a glance at some retrieve alternatives to attract and trigger a wide variety of game fish. Slow rolling. Working a Super Shad or Magnum 18 on the surface is a productive tactic that few anglers use. Cast, then hold the rod high and retrieve very slowly. This imparts a slow, tail-wagging action into the bait, and at times this approach drives fish absolutely crazy and is a great trick to fish over heavy cover like weeds, wood, or rocks.
Here's an erratic jumping retrieve. Cast and keep the rod tip high and use a sharp twitching motion while you retrieve quickly. This motion puts a very erratic fish attracting action into the bait. It's a great presentation to trigger the big boys. This is the classic jerkbait retrieve. Hold the rod tip down, then with a quick sweeping downward stroke, pull the lure. Then simply reel up the slack line and repeat the process. It's a great retrieve to fish a Magnum 18 or a Super Shad.
Here's one of my favorite retrieves, the burning retrieve. Cast and retrieve very fast. Speed can be an effective trigger for most large predators, especially in warm water situations when you're searching for active fish. Burn, baby, burn.
You can't forget about the slow sliding retrieve. This is similar to a jerkbait retrieve, but slower. This technique is particularly effective for inactive fish or cool water conditions and when working around heavy cover. Boy, we're moving along at about a 3.5. You know, any freshwater or saltwater fish can actually swim far faster than you could potentially reel the bait. That's where trolling becomes an important aspect of the angling equation.
We're ready to rock and roll, James. When it comes to trolling, think about this. You take a lure and you put it down and you keep it in the fish's strike zone 100% of the time. If you're casting, the lure is going to hit the water, you're going to drive it down, it's going to run, and then it comes back up to the surface. You're in the strike zone maybe 50% of the time. Those are putting the odds in your favor. Trolling is a viable presentation option for many species of fresh and saltwater fish.
Both of these baits are running really good at about 3.5 miles an hour. Right now, Dan and I are actually pulling two different baits. He's pulling a Mag 18, which will probably run down the way we're trolling, maybe 6 to 8 foot, while the CD 18, I'm going to try to get it down maybe 12 to 15 foot of water. Realistically, when you're trolling, one of the most important things is to have baits that are speed compatible, whether you're pulling 2 lines or 6 lines. You can see right now with this bait, I'm running the bottom a little bit too hard, so I'm going to have to pick up a little bit. What you want to do is run enough line out just to intermittently hit the bottom with whatever lure you're using and not really grind the bait into the bottom. That's perfect right there. Loose drag, just lighten it up just a little bit when you're trolling at this speed, because when they hit it, they'll really fold the rod back.
When we're contour trolling, we prefer to hold the rod, and the reason for that is, number one, I like to feel the bait working, and with this no stretch line, bang, 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 I can feel it. Feel the bottom cover, whether it's rock or sand, and then just as importantly, if you hang up on a bit of a weed and the lure is impeded, you can give it a rip the weed off, and keep it clean and keep on running.
Trolling crankbaits is a real efficient means to cover water. Actually, we pulled up on this point here, fished it for about 20 minutes, covered about 3 or 4 different levels, from the 8-foot level, 10-foot level, 15-foot level, and 17-foot level. Now we're ready to move on to the next spot. Doesn't seem like there's any active biters here right now.
Rapala lures are made to take abuse. Pound them on the rocks, bang them off wood, and let big toothy fish chew on them. Absolutely nothing hurts them. In fact, they like it. Remember, a lure has to be tougher than the fish you're chasing. Rapala's quality components and strict quality control during the production process means these baits are built tough. They are designed to catch big toothy fish year after year, and they do.
Get me out of the boat.
Okay,
big,
wait.
Big fish.
Okay, James.
Big fish. Big one.
Did she come out of that wood or
Yeah.
what?
Ooh. Come on, buddy.
Ooh. Get the cradle ready. Ooh, she's a nice looking specimen.
Fish? Yeah, it
James.
is. Whoa.
We'll just kind of drift down, James.
Yeah. Big crankbaits produce big fish. You gonna get them on the first pass?
I'm gonna get him on the first pass.
Let's do it. Let me get upside of you. Oh, look at the way the leader's wrapped around her nose, Dan. You gonna get her?
Yeah.
You gonna get her? Come on. There we go. Oh, boy, was that fish tough. I can't believe it. Get the pliers out. One thing about crankbaits, they're really effective for big fish throughout the entire course of the season.
And as a rule of thumb for crankbaits, start off with the smaller baits in the spring, progress to a little bit larger baits in midsummer, and then the biggest baits, use them in the fall in the cool water period, especially for large predators like pike and muskies.
There you go, James. Look at this guy here. Mr. Surrey,
Look at this horse,
Look
James.
at that guy. Ooh, what a beautiful, beautiful fish.
Okay.
Gotta take care of him. Be careful of these big guys here. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful muskie. Beautiful, beautiful fish. We better get her back in the water. Gorgeous, gorgeous fish.
Every fish picture tells a story, but the first question to arise is invariably, what it weigh? Well, once again, the folks at Rapala have your answer, with a variety of both mechanical and digital scales for fish of all sizes. The purpose of catch and release is obvious, to have a blast catching that big one and then releasing it unharmed to be caught another day. You want to get your photo and an accurate weight, but the way you handle the fish makes all the difference in a successful release. Get the fish under control quickly and get those hooks out. Avoid touching the eyes and be careful not to damage the gills. Whenever possible, use both hands to support the weight of the fish and restrain it from flipping out of your grasp. Now's the time to snap a couple of quick photos. Once that's taken care of, carefully slip the hook of the scale under the gill plate where it meets the lower jaw of the fish. Gently release the weight of the fish onto the scale and get a reading as quickly as possible. Some scales have memory features that store the weight of 10 fish. When you're ready to ease the fish back into the water, hold it in a natural swimming position until it revives and swims away. With larger, more unmanageable fish, it's best to weigh them in a net or cradle.
When you're weighing any type of trophy fish that you're going to release, you don't want to hook it underneath the gill or through the mouth, because you could potentially hurt the fish as well as yourself if the big fish starts to flop. This is a great method to weigh any type of big animal.
And we're quickly and easily going to weigh this fish right in the cradle.
This is sort of an interesting scale. It's got this little weigh bar, and what we do is zero it out. Now we hook the fish on it.
Ready,
Let's give her a weight.
We're there. Okay, back in the water. What do you got,
Back
James?
in the water. 24 pounds.
That's very good.
The first one of the day.
Then you can release the fish, weigh the empty net, and subtract it from the original reading. The whole process should only take a couple of minutes, and that's 2 minutes well spent in helping to ensure healthy, abundant fisheries in the future.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Schara. This is my co-star Raven from ESPN's Backroad Show. A question for you today. What separates the good lures from the bad ones? You know, that's a tough question to answer because for hundreds of years, we've been trying to fool a fish. But throughout history, some lures have worked better than others. Why? One word, craftsmanship. And when you think of craftsmanship, what do you think of? One lure, Rapala.
It's a wobble fish can't resist. As fishermen around the world began to catch more and bigger fish with Rapala lures, it became clear that what triggered them was the lure's tantalizing wiggle and wobble, the unique wounded minnow action. Each Rapala lure is hand-tuned and tank-tested to swim perfectly right out of the box. It's an action as distinct to Rapala as a fingerprint is to you, and proven to catch fish. One reason the wounded minnow action is not easily duplicated is the fact that Rapala is the only mass-produced balsa wood lure in the world. Wooden lures tend to wobble more slowly on retrieve than plastic ones, and many anglers believe this lazier action of a balsa wood Rapala means more strikes. It's the only lure with a rolling flash that perfectly imitates natural forage. Hand-laid foil combined with 7 coats of paint and lacquer create the illusion of a real minnow and makes the lure tough enough to stand up to tough fishing conditions. In addition, high-quality forged, lightweight black nickel hooks are standard equipment on all Rapala freshwater lures. Each hook has a pyramid point with 4 cutting edges to ensure solid hook sets, producing great catches and great memories for millions of fishermen. To this day, each Rapala lure is handcrafted, hand-tuned, and tank-tested to perfectly duplicate that struggling, slightly off-center, wounded wobble, the trademark of Rapala lures.
Now, what you've seen may not be the easiest or fastest way to make a fishing lure, but it's the only way to make a Rapala.
Aquatic edges play an all-important role in attracting fish. Most anglers focus their efforts along a timberline, a weed edge, a current break, or a drop-off. All these are places where fish can hunt prey and easily retreat to safety. Structure, they call it. Interestingly, few anglers consider that one of the most expansive edges that exist in any body of water is the surface itself. This top water zone is a distinct barrier utilized by many predatory species to corral and trap bait fish when feeding.
Ooh, there's a whopper. Look at that boy. Oh. Oh. Wow, there's a big one. Ooh, look at that beautiful fish. Look at that. Early in the morning. Okay, there we go. Look at that beautiful bass. Look at the size of the first guy in the morning. What a beautiful bass. Look at that. He just smoked that skitter prop. Ooh, that guy's really got it down there. Get the pliers out. Look at that, it really got him hooked. Oh, look at that. We'll get this boy back in the water. Okay, there we go. The big mouth. They like eating topwater baits, that's for sure. You know, prop baits like the skitter prop have been around for a long time, and for very good reason. They really catch fish big time, and probably a lot wider situations than a lot of people think.
I can tell you one thing, Rapala does a lot of homework on a lure prior to releasing it to the angling public. The skitter prop's balsa body has a wounded dive and roll action that can really trigger some explosive strikes. The blade has a twofold effect on the lure. One, it creates a large bubble train as the bait is pulled forward in the water. Two, it also slows the rise of the lure and puts out flash and vibration, which I believe can call fish out of deeper water or even heavy cover situations. The short shank, wide gap hooks ensure solid hookups every time. I tell you one thing, this is a great topwater lure.
Really, there's a number of different retrieves that you could do with the skitter prop. Right now, I'm making a lot of rips close together, then letting the bait sit. Aggressive rips, letting the bait sit. I'm trying to call these fish out of 10 foot of water. Right now, these fish are positioned maybe 10, 15 foot down, close to a deep weed edge. You actually suspend it out past the deepest edge of the weeds. But what you're trying to do is to literally call that fish up, and depending on their activity level, how long you have to let that bait sit. And you have to experiment throughout the course of a day. Early in the morning, the fish might be really aggressive, and I can almost keep that bait moving in very, very short stops, and the fish will hit the bait. At other times, as the sun gets higher, I may have to let that bait sit for a longer period of time to be able to call that fish up out of deeper water. There's one. Oh, good one. Look at that guy. Whoa. That's a better sized one. There we go. I'll tell you one thing. These guys are really liking this propper today. You know, right now I happen to be fishing over weeds, but there's a wide variety of different habitats where a skitter prop like this is very, very effective.
Prop baits can be fished over or around a wide range of surface and submerged objects. In the shallows, watch for isolated trees, lily pads, or man-made structures like docks or wood pilings. Moving deeper, look for expansive flats of rock, weed, or wood. Topwater lures are great baits to quickly comb expansive areas looking for active biters. Skitter props really shine when fish are suspended and preying on open water forage. They're also highly effective in rivers and are the best topwater bait to cast in choppy wind conditions.
Ooh, there you go. Woo-hoo! Look at that. Ooh, he's a leaper. Ooh. Come on. Ooh, look at the size of that guy. really had a good attitude about him. Come here, buddy. Oop, get the trusty pliers out. One thing that's important when you're topwater fishing for just about any fish species is the rod you fish. We'll get this guy back in the water. Come here. Beautiful greenie. You can see the old lime-colored skitter prop is getting a little bit of a workout today. He's got a real nice sandpapered back. One important aspect of topwater fishing is the tackle you use. Realistically, a bait casting rod is the way to go, spooled with a 17 to 20 pound test line. This is, happens to be Rapala Tough Line. I'm fishing with the Signature Series rod, medium action, 6.5 foot in length. It just fishes the bait very efficiently. If you hook a big fish in heavy cover, you have enough torque to really give you a little bit of leverage with that bait casting reel and line, heavier line, to be able to pull the fish out of cover. It's just a good combination to fish a topwater lure. Ooh, there's a good one. He was sort of a slurper. Boy, these boys are on it, aren't they? Come here, buddy. Right now, we got about as perfect conditions for fishing topwater as you could imagine. A little bit of cloud cover. It's about 80 degrees out. It's been real stable for the last number of days. The water temperature is about as high as it'll get throughout the course of the entire season. Beautiful bass. Okay, get her back in the water. Come on. There we go. You know, some of you might ask, does color make a difference when you're topwater fishing? Realistically, I've seen times when it seems like it made all the difference in the world. At other times, it didn't seem so much the color to make the difference, but the presentation of the bait being on the surface and the prop spinning. The fish are really tuned in to feeding on the surface like they are right now during midsummer. So the thing is, I guess you can experiment. I think a big thing about color is confidence based on success. So I carry a wide variety of different colors. You can see right here, this is actually the bottom, and what this is suspended bait fish and bass. I'm actually trying to call these fish out of 10, 12 foot of water to come to the surface. That's why with that skitter prop, you got to make a lot of noise, let the bait sit there for a while to literally call those fish up out of that depth. A lot of people would have the tendency to be fishing jigs or subsurface baits. They're literally fishing below the real active fish. There they are, right there.
Most anglers realize that topwater fishing is a superb shallow water presentation. Right now, I'm trying to call fish that are suspended 8 to 12 foot below the surface. A lot of anglers don't know that you could call a fish to the surface from that depth. In fact, however, it might be the most effective and efficient way to target these fish. You have to realize that these fish, by looking up at the surface, have a very, very large strike window. Beyond this, once they commit to attack a bait from this depth, the more likely they are to savagely smash it.
Throughout the summer months, a lot of times these bluegills and all this bait is suspended way out off these deep weed edges like this. And the people are literally fishing through the fish and not catching them. A lot of times what they prefer is this topwater presentation. I just had one come up on my bait. Oh, look at that one. Did you see him just come up and crunch on it? Look at that. Holy, look at that guy. That fish came out of that fish was actually probably 10 feet down over 18 foot of water, and that's where I called that fish out of. A lot of people think that topwater are primarily a shallow water bait, like a skitter prop, but I can guarantee you one thing. They work in a lot more conditions than a lot of people would give them credit for. I can guarantee you that, and they're phenomenally effective for real big bass. Look at that, beautiful fish.
They are either shallow,
Oh, there's one, Vaughn.
All right.
Right on the turn. Nice fish.
deep,
Feels like a good one.
or somewhere in between. Any successful angler knows that before you can catch a fish, you must first put a lure in front of that fish. One of the best ways to do that is by pressing a full lineup of Shad Raps into service. By starting with the shallow Shad Rap and working your way deeper with the larger baits, you can comb the water column. The Shad Rap family of lures allows you the flexibility to locate the fish wherever they are from top to bottom. How deep a lure will run is always a concern when you're casting a crankbait. The most obvious factors that dictate depth are shape and bill design, but there are other factors that will determine a lure's running depth, the length of a cast, line diameter, and retrieve speed can also dramatically affect how deep a bait will ultimately run. To get the maximum depth, make a long cast, then quickly reel the bait down for a few feet. From there, a slow and steady retrieve will drive a Shad Rap to its maximum depth potential. Remember, a few feet in depth can definitely influence the number of bites you receive throughout the course of a day on the water.
You know, I tournament fish all over the country. To do this efficiently and effectively, I need to work a lot of water quickly and isolate those areas where active or biting fish are located. I've learned that casting crankbaits is simply one of the best techniques I know to find fish, and big ones fast. So when is absolutely the best time to cast wraps? Well, believe it or not, that's a fairly simple question to answer. Anytime fish are bunched up in shallow water, 3 to 8 feet being the optimum depth. As a general rule, active fish, and I don't care what species, walleye, bass, stripers, whatever, all move shallow at times to feed. This is when casting the Shad Rap can really shine. Basically, there are two different boat positioning tactics I like to use when I'm crankbait fishing. Anchoring and fan casting an area is one of the most thorough methods to work small, specific fish holding spots. Right now I'm anchored on a shallow, isolated rock pile with finger-like spines. This is what I really call a classic crankbait spot. I've got two rods rigged here, one for the top of the rock reef and one for the edges. This is a number 5 jointed Shad Rap that I'm going to use for the very top of it, and this is a number 9 Shad Rap right here that I'm going to use for the deep edges. On each of these structures, it's important to recognize that there are very specific spots on a spot zones that tend to attract and concentrate feeding fish. For example, the large clean boulders on top of this hump is the exact location where I want to work my lure through. Also, I'd work any inside corner, point, or bend along the length of this rock pile. These are the types of spots where predators will lurk when feeding and using as ambush sites. On these particular spots, make sure you work them thorough. After thoroughly fan casting my first anchor position, I will then reposition the boat in another high percentage spot and simply repeat the process. A really good way for covering a lot of water is using your trolling motor and fan casting a crankbait over vast areas of flats or shoreline.
This tactic enables an angler to cover extensive areas quickly, and many times that's the secret. Eliminating unproductive water until you find a productive piece. Most times, hold the boat in deeper water and cast up and retrieve the lures down the drop-off. With an arsenal of Shad Raps, you can match your presentation precisely to the fish's mood. The original and the shallow Shad Rap offer you the purest action you can put in the water. In clear water, when only the most subtle action will do, they're the best choice. When fish need a little more, the RS Shad Rap rattles and suspends. On days when you need to throw them a curve, try the jointed Shad Rap. Its wider and noisier wobble can be just what the doctor ordered.
Oh, there's one. Feels like a good one. Whoa! She might as well jump. Might as well get one more out of her. Whoa! Oh, man. Now that's a good first fish of the day, huh? Good looking fish, good looking fish. Nip right on the end hook, kind of nipping at it. Now that tells me something. That's a good one. Get her back. You know, in this case, what I'm doing is I'm holding my boat in and around 12 foot of water in a channel ledge, and there's a big 4-foot flat, and it's filled with rocks. And I'm bouncing a shad wrap over the rocks. That just came off of the edge, it broke free, bingo, the bass was on. You always want to make contact if you can. Bouncing bottom is key, touching the edges of weeds, trigger strikes, bouncing in and around stumps, running the bait through bushes. All of these are the things that make fish bite on a bait like a shad wrap. With any of these baits, it's critical to vary your retrieve. Subtle changes will often entice strikes, so it's vital to realize how the bait was moving prior to catching a fish. Hey, was I reeling fast or slow? Was the lure suspended? Did the fish gobble the lure or simply nip at it? It's important to match your retrieve to the feeding attitude of the fish. In warm water, a fast retrieve and erratic action can be key to triggering feeding fish. On the other hand, during cold fronts, a long pause and a couple of twitches may be needed to trigger the more neutral or negative fish into striking. In dark water or in current, a very slow yet consistent retrieve might be the best option. Hey, a lot of this simply is trial and error. I like to pump that bait. I've been really pumping it with the rod. Got him. One of the more important elements of a casting approach is understanding the environmental conditions that tend to stimulate big predators to come into shallow water and feed. Cloudy or overcast days, particularly in clear water, is one of those conditions. Strong winds often can concentrate schools of bait fish in shallow areas and in turn trigger those big predators into a feeding frenzy. Casting crankbaits in current is another good option. Low light periods are always key. Morning, evening, and night is prime wrap casting periods. You know, it's really important to pay attention to the attitude of the fish. Now remember that first fish that I landed when I said this fish is caught on the last treble hook? This tells me something. When those fish are nipping and you're getting them on that last treble, that means something isn't quite right. It could be in what you're doing with the bait, the action of the bait. It could be the color of the bait. It could be the size of the bait. When they're on and want everything and you're doing it right, it's a mouthful of hooks. They're pinned on both ends. They're gobbling it. That's when you know you got everything tuned right. Hey, what about lure color? Over the course of the season, I'll use or at least experiment with just about every color in the spectrum. Experienced anglers all agree that color does make a difference. The folks at Rapala take special care to provide just the right color patterns and finishes to mimic forage species found in any region. Sometimes a natural finish is the ticket to success, while other times a brighter, flashy color pattern may be the best choice. You have to experiment every time you're on the water. You know, every year I get to fish with some awful good fishermen. Tournament walleye fishermen, tournament bass fishermen, guides, and just plain everyday local fishermen. And you know one thing they all got in common? They got shad wraps in their tackle box. Now that tells you something.